Hi again, everyone. I'm Patrick Pfingsten. Welcome to the Illinoize podcast. We are at the Illinois State Fair in Springfield. Had Governor's Day on Wednesday this week, Republican Day on Thursday this week. We were here for everything. Republicans trying to show why they can be competitive in November. Democrats showing why they're the dominant force in the state as we head into the fall campaign. We had speechifying from both sides, chats with both parties, and elected officials from all sides and candidates from all sides. Fun times as always. Sun in our face, rides behind us, crowds everywhere. Exactly how you expect it to go at the Illinois State Fair. Here are a couple of highlights from the week from Governor J.B. Pritzker and Republican nominee for governor Darren Bailey.
We have a $15 minimum wage in Illinois. We have universal paid leave. We got rid of the state grocery tax and we opened grocery stores in places that needed them. We've canceled more than $1.1 billion for families with medical debt.
We have seen what it looks like when regressive Republicans take over the governor's mansion, and there is no way in hell we're letting them do it again.
J.B. Pritzker owns the highest property taxes in America. J.B. Pritzker owns the soaring utility bills. He owns these taxes. He owns these tolls, the fees that are taking more from working families every day, and enough is enough.
Because I don't think Trump is a absolute anchor. When I'm coming along, when I'm getting in front of these people, and I mean, I think some polling suggesting that, yes, Trump's way underwater, but Pritzker's underwater as well, and that polling's got me higher than that. What I've got to do is convince people that President Trump, or any other president for that matter, will have no influence on the governorship of Illinois. We've got our own unique problems. We talk about learning from 4 years ago. That's the biggest thing I learned as I was coming back into this race and realizing that I am not going to go through the same motions. I've got to figure out what we did wrong last time, what we need to do better, and finding this 80-20 messaging was number one, and focusing on that. And J.B. Pritzker's given it to us. Affordability, safety, and and every day, yesterday, increasing the tolls. He's just the gift that keeps on giving.
Here's a conversation we had Thursday with Illinois Senate Republican leader John Curran. Talked a lot of legislative politics with him as we approach the November election. Pleased to have Senate Republican leader John Curran here in our little fairgrounds gazebo after Republican Day at the State Fair. So you're a Brother Rice guy, right? So probably not a lot of State Fair trips in your childhood?
No, but we're coming off a state football championship.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Those are, and we could talk Illinois football in an entire another sit down. But all right, we just came from the rally as we taped this Thursday afternoon with the Midway right behind us. Are things going well for Republicans right now? Because I watched that production, which wasn't much of a production. I listened to those speeches. I saw that crowd. I didn't see a lot of reaction, even of your party faithful. And it's hard to look at that and say, man, the Republican Party is a well-heeled operation at this point.
Patrick, I think Republicans historically have had more difficulty. Both parties fight intensely in primaries. We've always had more trouble healing after a primary than the Democrats. The Democrats do a better job of all coming back under the tent after a primary. I would say what Republicans have going for us is people are becoming more aware, more alarmed at the extremism that is sprouting up in the Democratic Party and these DSA elections around the country. And some of these primary wins, that is something that is giving pause to people when they think about going in for the Democrats.
Yeah, you've seen the polls. I mean, you see the drag that Trump is at the top of the ticket, and that clearly Democrats see that too, because every sentence out of J.B. Pritzker's mouth is subject verb Donald Trump sucks, right? And they certainly see that. And is that, I mean, Trump is a bigger shadow than Zoran Mamdani, right? I mean, it's got to be worse for you than them, right?
I'm looking at numbers that for the president in Illinois target districts are used as you described, and it's not bleeding down. I'm amazed, and it is because people are holding Illinois Democrats to account for their record. So I do not believe President Trump's going to be a drag in our target districts, like I hypothesized before I got into the data. But I would say we need to talk about Illinois. We don't need to talk about Washington, D.C. We don't need to talk about President Trump. I mean, he got elected to solve the crisis at the border. That's been done. He got elected to bring down the high cost of living and runaway inflation under President Biden. That is still a work in progress. He has not gotten that done. So we need to talk about the Illinois economic record, and that's where our focus is.
Can Darren Bailey win?
Darren Bailey can win, absolutely.
How?
I think Governor Pritzker has a ceiling. So it is up to Darren Bailey and Illinois Republicans to show up to vote. And Darren Bailey can win because Governor Pritzker has a ceiling in Illinois. That's what I see in all the polling I'm looking at.
When you look at the governor putting $65 million into his campaign, you know, he doesn't like to talk about the fact that it's $439 million since 2017. He snipped at me a little bit about that on Wednesday. But you know that that's not all going into the gubernatorial race. You know that that's going, you know, to Margaret Croak and to Kwame Raoul and probably Alexi Janulius and certainly to Don Harmon, who's already sitting on, you know, a Scrooge McDuck level of campaign cash for a legislative leader, and to the House Democrats most likely. How do you treat that? Because I know Republicans can say, well, we're going to knock on doors and we're going to outwork them, but when you're just getting drowned on TV and getting drowned on digital, I mean, that's just got to be infuriating from your perspective.
The Democrats spend money to hide from their economic record, to basically distort what their economic record is in Illinois. The fact that we are, you know, since Governor Pritzker's been in office, year over year, bottom 5 in economic growth. We're a big economy, we're losing ground. Bottom 5 in job growth, bottom 4 in wage growth, bottom 3 in population growth, top 2 in property taxes, number 1 in overall tax liability to residents. Like that's the economic record for Democrats. The money is spent to distort that. It is a huge advantage. There's no doubt. The gerrymandered maps are a huge advantage for Democrats. Democrats have 2 massive advantages in Illinois. Governor Pritzker's money on top of the money advantage that is naturally there for incumbent parties that are in power, and the gerrymandered maps. Illinois, what Republicans can't complain about it. We've got to fight through it. I mean, there's just no other way around it. So we don't complain on it. We don't focus on it. We fight through that with messaging on what the record, the economic record is for Democrats in Illinois. They have been in charge of this state since January of 2023. Complete charge, except for a 4-year term of a Republican governor that had supermajority. Well, no, since 2003.
Oh, 2003, yeah.
Yeah, they had the House, the Senate, and the governorship since then, and we had 1 4-year term, Governor Rauner, that had most of the time had supermajorities in either the House or the Senate. The approximate.
We've talked about gerrymandering a lot, and Lord knows I've been on the warpath about it over the years. But I mean, you look at the Senate map this year. There's probably 5 races, right? You're defending 3: the Hills race, the 33rd, and then Erica Harris in 56th. Then you're trying to pick up 2, Halpin and Turner. You know, I know I'm not always popular among your crew when I say you guys are likely to lose seats. Why am I wrong when I say that? And look at the numbers.
We have great candidates. I think our map on defense is even bigger than 3. I mean, when you talk about the 33rd Senate District, retiring Senator DeWitt, Senator Seth Lewis, we're very
obviously Darby Hills,
and Senator Hills and Senator Harris. We're very fortunate. Senator Resin, Deputy Leader Resin, has a competitive district, but she's such an institution there that takes that off the board. So I think you're going to see a strong play from the Democrats and Senator Wilcox in McHenry County because of the changing voting patterns in the suburbs. They're going to test that strongly. We have incumbency in all those districts. We have the power of incumbency in all those districts, and we have strong operations that have been running We're going to be able to fund those defensive races, and that's why we're not going to lose seats. And the district right here in Springfield is the one that excites us the most on a pickup opportunity, and that's Frank Lesko.
Well, we saw this week that Doris Turner went up on TV, broadcast and cable, in the Springfield Decatur market. She has a gigantic cash advantage on Lesko, and certainly there's going to be more to come for her from either Pritzker or Harmon and unions, etc. What's the path? Just seeing that disadvantage, and I mean it's certainly a better Democratic district than it was when Andy Menard had it. I think after the gerrymander in 2022, but certainly, I mean, if you look at it, even field, it's close to 50-50.
You're an experienced political operative, Patrick. You have
not a very good one.
You have your background. Where we're very fortunate is Frank Lesko stepped up to run, and we have a candidate that in the most populated part of the district is already defined, and already defined positively. He's been elected time and again here in Sangamon County, in the city of Springfield, Sangamon County. He has delivered on reducing costs, saving taxpayers dollars. If we did not have that defined candidate already, that early heavy spend by the Democrats bury us. So that's the advantage we have this time running in this 48th Senate district, is they're not going to be able to define Frank. They're going to try to distort Frank, but Frank's already defined. That's a huge advantage. I think, and quite frankly, back in Andy Menard's day, I think they went up on TV in early July.
Yeah, earlier.
So that's the advantage Frank brings to this for us, and then we've got to run hard with Frank through the finish line now.
But you're a suburban guy. You see the presence or lack thereof that Bailey has. And you guys aren't gonna flip DuPage County anytime soon with what is a Southern Illinois super conservative candidate. I'm sure you can admit that. But I mean, are you concerned about a drag down the ticket when you see Bailey in potentially really tough shape in the suburbs?
You're always looking as you come down the ballot who's gonna cross voters over. Darren Bailey did not run strong in DuPage County 4 years ago, and that was problematic. I believe he's going to run stronger in DuPage County this time, and a lot of it has to do with Governor Pritzker's economic policies, and we have 4 more years of data and results on what he's brought to Illinoisans. They're not better off, and so the voters of DuPage County are aware of that. Darren's going to run stronger there, but we have, Senator Seth Lewis is going to be that crossover in that part of DuPage County. So that we really focus on our candidates and making sure our candidates are bringing more voters in on the Republican side.
That's going to be a really fun race to watch with Lewis, because he's, obviously that's a district that's trending away from Republicans on paper. Lewis is really good, though. I mean, he really runs them, and then you've got a really super liberal Democrat that I don't know the Democrats are even going to invest in.
I would say there's no candidate on the ballot for Illinois Senate, Republican or Democrat, that has a broader base of appeal and support than Seth Lewis. He's done a wonderful job of being the big tent Republican, welcoming everyone in.
How do you find more of those people? Because that's look at the 33rd, right? You had your preferred candidate who was sort of the centrist, the mom, the really great on paper candidate, and then loses to the person on the right? And that's the kind of stuff that kind of hurts in the suburbs.
Once the primary's over, we sit down and we talk about, do you want to be a senator or not? And if you do, let me tell you my story. And I can talk from experience, my story. I represent a Democratic district. My district is generically as Democratic as any of them in the caucus. And I talk about the 2018 election and what it takes. And you've got to be a big tent Republican. And you've got to pull in moderates, you've got to pull in independents, you've got to pull in Democratic voters while keeping your base, and what that takes. And we've had so Danielle Penman, our candidate in 33, she gets that, and that's where her campaign's going.
Yeah, she also appealed to unions, which is significantly different than maybe your sort of far right MAGA suburban kind of candidate.
And you take the strengths and you figure how you're going to maximize the strengths and minimize the weaknesses, right?
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. I had a text from a Republican, former Republican, whatever you want to call it, during the Republican Day rally, and said the Illinois GOP is dead. Whether it's the infrastructure, the state party, whether it's Bailey, whether it's Trump, whatever. Why is that person wrong?
Well, first off, I mean, one, because we're here. We're here in the House and the Senate. We play a big role. You know, we're not in the majority, but we have impact on a day in and day out basis in the legislature. You know, everything cycles. You know, and right now we're in a lull, and we're working our way out of that lull. But you know, this is going to cycle back. It was a generation ago that Republicans had the governorship. You know, had the Senate, had statewide offices. It's getting a little more than a generation now. It is time, but we got to fight through that. We are more than alive and fighting day in and day out for the people of Illinois. And let's face it, the economic record of the Democrats is not something any Illinoisan should accept. We need to be a high-growth state, not a low-growth state. Nothing's getting easier in Illinois because we have substandard growth. So you want growth, you got to give the Republicans a chance.
Leader Curran, good to see you.
Thank you, Patrick. Good to be with you.
And on the Democratic side, we spoke with Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski, a Democrat from Springfield. We spoke with her over at the Commodity Pavilion after the Governor's Day rally on Wednesday. We had a little camera snafu on my end. My file got corrupted of my face, so you don't get to see my face, sorry. But you do get to see Congresswoman Budzinski as we talked to her on Wednesday. Welcome to the State Fair.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So you live in Springfield now. You're a Peoria girl, though. So was the State Fair part of the lore for Peoria kids growing up?
I have certainly, I've been to the State Fair well before I ever got to Congress. Yeah, like going to what is Governor's Day, Dem Day at the State Fair was always, as somebody that worked on a lot of political campaigns, it's kind of a rite of passage that you come out here. But I love the State Fair. I love it for a few different reasons. Like the Twilight Parade is always fun. We've got a good crew that we do it. I host a cookout at my house afterwards to thank my parade marchers. And then we did Ag Day, because Ag Day's before. It was last week. And it's just a great opportunity to see folks from all over the state. I think in particular in agriculture, it's been helpful in just seeing my growers again. But then as a Democrat, it's great to be out here rallying ahead of the election.
So we're taping this at Commodities Pavilion about, an hour after the rally ended?
Yeah. And after we finish this, I'm eating this pork sandwich.
She's got her eyes on this pork burger. I think my takeaway from the rally, and you're gonna disagree with me, and I'm fine with that, is that the Democrats feel like they've got this all in the bag in November, at least in this state, whether it's money, gerrymandering, the putrid state of the Republican Party, whatever it might be, that there was a level of confidence that if you didn't know the political dynamic in this state, could maybe border on overconfidence.
Well, let me just say my philosophy with every election is you either run scared or you run unopposed. So I don't think we should be taking any election for granted, and I would admit that I think sometimes Democrats can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That saying has been said before. But I do think that we feel confident going into November because we're putting forward a vision, I think. I'm working on some of that vision in the House on how we're going to bring down costs. I mean, affordability gets thrown around as a buzzword ahead of this election season, but the reality is if you look at the Trump administration, the tariff policies that have led to increased costs for groceries, this war in Iran that has led to increased costs at the gas pump, prices have been going up since this administration, since Trump took office. And he made a promise to the American people that on day one, these are his words, not my words, on day one he was going to bring down costs, and he quite simply hasn't done that. I just had a round table with one of my colleagues that came out to St. Louis, and it's all about, we were tasked by Leader Jeffries to set up a working group around what we're going to do as Democrats to bring down the cost of utilities and gas when we take back the House majority. And I would just say that These are issues. Energy prices since the Trump administration took office have gone up by 16%. And the reality is for working people, those cost pressures are hitting the same person in multiple different ways. They're seeing their healthcare premiums go up. They're seeing with this tariff, grocery prices, etc. So Democrats are offering, I believe we are working toward offering this alternative of bringing down costs and staying focused on that. And we'll win because of that.
It's interesting though, because while that's a message that in theory sounds good, because Trump bad on tariffs, Trump bad on prices, Trump bad on war and gas prices, right? What's the alternative, right? I don't know that, and this is probably the big national picture, not zoomed into Central Illinois, but I don't know that I've heard a really thoughtful position from Democrats on how are we going to make life more affordable. Obviously, even if the war stops tomorrow because Democrats somehow take over Congress, that it's not like gas prices go down immediately. How do you guys in a House majority, maybe a Senate majority, we'll see, how do you do those things that you're promising? Because otherwise, 2 years from now, you're getting hit with the same stuff Trump's getting hit with today.
Well, I think it's coming up with common sense solutions that we can lead on day one and making that case on what those solutions are to the American people. For me, it's things like addressing the fact that healthcare has become a completely broken system in this country. It's too expensive. We have to, the cuts that this administration did to Medicaid, almost $1 trillion of cuts to this Medicaid program. And I can tell you in Central and Southern Illinois, we need those Medicaid dollars to keep some of our rural hospitals open. So it's rolling some of that back. It's also making sure that, we're holding prescription drug companies, pharmaceutical companies accountable. We're capping costs. Pharmacy benefit managers, they're the middlemen in this prescription drug hikes in costs. We need to hold them accountable. These are the kinds of pieces of legislation that Democrats do have, and we want to lead on day one. When I was doing my conversation around what we're going to do to lower gas prices, I'm a huge proponent of year-round E15. Year-round E15 is something that our growers in Central and Southern Illinois, it's great for them because it creates a new market. And if you go to any gas pump in Springfield that offers the E15 option, you're going to see a lower price at the pump. There are just common sense solutions that I think we can lead on as Democrats, but we have to make that case. I think I'm hearing you, and that if we don't make that case, I think we want to offer an alternative. It's not just that these guys are terrible, it's that we have a vision. And I will say those are the things that we're really working on healthcare, on housing, on energy prices, on family care is another one, and grocery prices.
It seems though as there seems to be a divide in your party on messaging, right? There's those that are, the Juliana Stratton sticker was floating around with the F Trump, or Trump's a warmonger, or impeach now. And then there are those that say, well, we've got to focus on the kitchen table issues, my least favorite term in politics these days.
Yeah.
How do those two converge? Because you guys talk about the big tent, and you don't want enough clowns in the tent to make it a circus either. So how do you circle those squares?
I think there's a lot that unifies us. I do think, let me just say, this administration needs to be checked. There needs to be accountability. The fact that the Trump administration and Donald Trump personally has benefited since being in the White House just this term, he's made $1.4 billion on his crypto investments. Public services should never be about making money. If you're making that kind of money, in my opinion, you're doing public service incorrectly. There needs to be accountability and transparency with this administration on a whole host of things is what they're doing. So I think, yes, there's that piece. But what people really care about, and we've talked about this a lot, is they don't want more of the political noise, the yapping back and forth, the clicks. They want real solutions. And I think for Democrats, and that's something I've been really working on, I'm the vice chair for policy of the new Democratic Coalition. We're the centrists, we're the largest coalition within the House Democratic Caucus, 114 members. I think we'll get up to 125, 130 next Congress. we are leading on real prescriptions for what legislation will look like that are going to bring down costs. So we have to know as Democrats, when we take back power, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is about accountability with Trump, but it's about lowering costs. And that should be our focus. Because I will say, Patrick, I get tired of talking about how we're going to take the House back this cycle. I want a permanent majority in the House of Representatives. And that means that next Congress, we're going to have to defend some seats. Not too far from here in Iowa, I think we could pick up to 3 seats. All 3 of those seats are seats that Donald Trump won in 2024. That means as Democrats, we have to lead with solutions that are common sense oriented. And that will be my focus next year.
How do Democrats do that with the DSA moderate divide, or not even moderate, normie divide, right? You call yourself a normie, call yourself a moderate, whatever it might be, but you and Abdul El Sayed are not the same thing politically.
No, right,
and you know, obviously he's Senate, but that's the easy one that comes to mind for folks. How do you guys work together like that?
Yeah, look, I think we are a big tent party. I think you see that. I think we do have disagreements. Obviously, I disagree with some of these candidates too. But largely, we're united on some really big issues. We think that gas prices, all of us think gas prices are too high. All of us think that this war in Iran is a needless war that we should never have gotten us into, and Donald Trump has made a colossal mess. All of us agree that the healthcare system in this country is broken. We might disagree, and we do, on how to fix it, but we agree on a lot of the issues that do need to be fixed, and trying to largely work to the same end goal, which is to provide relief in this country to working people and strengthen the middle class. We are losing the middle class in this country. So I think some of the tactics, some of the specific policy details we might find disagreements on, and we do, but I think largely we agree on what the problems are, and we need to work toward fixing them. I
mean, you've gotten challenged from the left. Your district is a great example of that, right? With some pretty conservative rural areas in it, as well as the People's Republic of Urbana or East St. Louis or those sort of things. And I mean, you've got to see that on the ground too, because there are still plenty of Republicans in your district that are going to look at Democrats and say they're the party of woke, the party that doesn't understand my life. You're going to see the normie Springfield Dems. You're going to see the university ghetto Dems, and you're getting pulled in every direction, and that's got to be hard to manage.
Look, I would say I did have a challenge in the primary from my left. I was really proud. We worked really hard to win that primary with 76% of the vote. And we were able to do that because I am the same person I've always said I was. I am looking for common sense solutions. I'm a workhorse. I'm not a show horse. I will work with Republicans if we can agree on issues. And I found some issues. I just got rated 2 weeks ago from a nonprofit as the 20th most bipartisan member in the House of Representatives, 435 members. And I'm proud of that because I think that the district I represent wants me to go to DC to find solutions, not political noise. And when I had a primary challenger, I stayed true to that. I talked about what I've delivered for the Springfield Rail project, working with Senator Durbin, the work I've been doing on the western side of the district, confronting water infrastructure issues in Cahokia Heights, some of the important issues that are bringing back federal dollars, and what I've fought this administration on too. So I guess I say, I think we have differences of opinion in the party, but if you stay true to who you are and that you're focused on results and solutions, I think at the end of the day, those are Democrats that are going to win.
When you walk into a diner in rural Champaign County or a farm in Monticello or a small business in Springfield that is on the west side, I guess would probably be the best way to put it. And they're Republican, they lean right, whatever it might be. You need them to look at you differently than they look at J.B. Pritzker, that they look differently than Gavin Newsom, and they look differently than Nancy Pelosi, right? And how do you set yourself apart from sort of this national Democrat brand that if you're not in between the lines here, can look kind of out of touch?
Yeah, I mean, I think, former Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. And I take that to heart. When I'm in a diner...
It sure doesn't feel that way anymore.
It does feel like a lot of our elections get nationalized, but I will say for the office I'm running for Congress, I do think that I can go into a diner and nobody asks me about any other Democrat per se necessarily, other than what I'm doing, what I'm focused on. I just had a roundtable with a bunch of corn growers in my district, and I've been working really hard. I mentioned year-round E15. I've been working really hard on issues around conservation. I've been standing up to this administration on their tariff policy, and farmers, whether they're Democrat or Republican, that is what they care about. And so I think it's meeting people where they are. I also think for Democrats, it's just important to never write off those red areas, never write off rural communities just because they don't deliver the votes that you're looking for from an electoral perspective. It's about representing everyone, and when I go to Washington, and sometimes I get blowback from people within my own party on this, I take the whole district in total, and I think, how do I best represent all of my constituents? And I think I try to make that case that that's what I do. I think people see that in the work I do, and it's worked.
How do you view your race? Right now? Yeah, it's pretty underfunded Republican who's probably a little more Trumpy than the district, but obviously is an option, and you never know what happens in rural areas. And do you take him seriously? Do you take any Republican seriously at this point?
Oh yeah. Like I said, I believe in the philosophy you either run unopposed or you run scared. I have a full campaign operation. We're opening campaign offices throughout the district. I've got a team that's on the ground. We're knocking doors. We're putting out lawn signs. We're doing all the things. I'm not taking my opponent for granted, whether he has funds or no funds or whatever. And I think that's what the people deserve. I think they deserve to hear about your ideas, what you want to do next term. And honestly, Patrick, I would do that whether I had an opponent or not. But I do think you have to take every election seriously.
What's the hardest part of the job? Right, everyone thinks politician or Congress is such a, I don't want to say glorified thing, because I worked for Rodney. I always told him, why are you working so hard for the worst job in politics? But,
what did he say?
I can't repeat that in public, but it's a tough job, and it's more divided even than it was when I was him. So there've got to be nights that you come home and close the front door and say, Jesus Christ, this was hard.
Yeah, you know what? It is hard. But I will say I very deeply believe in public service, and I don't mean that as some political line. Like, I believe that it's about serving people, and it's about trying to make people's lives a little better, helping to try to be a part of finding solutions. I think the hardest part of the job is the political noise that some of my colleagues they love to do that. That's their shtick. They love to be on social media. I rarely, honestly, kind of check in on social media because I think it is a pretty toxic place these days. It's not a place that you go to find consensus and so I just think that I always say in a lot of the speeches I give, like, it's an honor of my life to represent this district. It really is a true honor, and it's really hard. I'm not trying to say that it's not, but I love to think about the work, try to figure out problems, and try to help be a part of a solution. And that carries me through even on the hard days. I wish I had a little bit more time off. I will admit that to you. But it's hard to take time, to be honest, because I think there is just that much to do,
Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski, good to see you at the fair.
Oh, good to see you, Patrick.
Great, thank you.
Good to be in person with you.
It's nice, right?
Yeah.
Thanks to Senate Republican leader John Curran. Thanks to Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski. Thank you for joining us. Fun week at the fair. Ready to get home and see the family, see the kids, and get in the air conditioning. We'll talk to you next time on the Illinoize podcast.